Hi, and welcome to another episode of A Walk to Remember. My name is Dwayne Baker-Henderson, and as always, I'll be your host as we explore some of the truth and the myths surrounding postpartum depression, as well as give you some tips to make your journey or someone else's journey through postpartum depression just a little bit easier. Today, I want to talk about a quote that I heard recently at a church service, and it's going to be taken slightly out of context for the purposes of this video. But it really made me stop and think about looking at where we've come from and how we can use that in our past experiences to get through something as difficult as postpartum depression. I'll read you the quote here. It's actually from the Aramaic version of the Lord's Prayer. Aramaic is thought to be the language that Jesus spoke. And this is a direct translation from that. It's much different than our English version of the Lord's Prayer. And this is from fourth or fifth verse of this prayer. And I'm only going to read a portion of it. The entire verse is about twice as long as this. But the part that really sparked my attention in this verse goes, "Even darkness shines when we remember." And I thought that was quite profound, actually, because looking back at the darkest times in our lives, we can always find connections that take us from those dark periods to the periods where the darkness goes away and we experience joy and happiness and abundance and all the things that we want in our lives. There's always connections, and you can find connections in all of the good things that have happened to you in those dark times. Looking back at my own life, and I've discussed a bunch of the different things that have happened in my life, I'll give you just a couple of examples. Now, when my son was just about to be born, about 2 months before he was born, I lost my best friend, Michael. And Michael had been my closest friend for 25 years. We were actually inseparable during school from grade 4 until grade 12. And as happens when you leave school and you go off to start living your life and advancing your education, we kind of lost touch a little bit. But not to the extent where we never saw each other. It was just less than the everyday occurrence that we'd had. And in 2003, in October of 2003, Mike passed away, basically from kidney failure. He had diabetes from the time he was very young, and his organs just started to shut down. And his kidneys were kind of the last one to give him some difficulty, and he ended up having a heart attack and passing away. And for our whole life together, like I said, Mike and I had been inseparable. We were the best of friends. We knew each other really, really well, and we taught each other things all the time. He taught me lots about things like loyalty and friendship and brotherhood, because I never actually had a real brother. I have several stepbrothers, but never a blood brother, and things like that. And when he passed away, my first impulse was, of course, grief. I really, really missed him. But very shortly after his passing, I started to realize that he was teaching me more things as time was going on, even though he had passed away. And one of the things that I've taken away from his passing was the need to change the direction my life was going. At the time, I was just kind of going through the motions, going to work, working long hours, and really not enjoying myself very much, not getting a whole lot out of it. I didn't really have any purpose in my life. But when I went to his funeral, there were actually hundreds and hundreds of people in this church. And I have to tell you, Mike was one of the nerdiest people that I've ever met. He was a geek from childhood. And so he didn't have a lot of friends when we were growing up. It was basically him and me, and maybe a couple of other people, but he and I, for the most part, were together all the time. And so it came as a really big shock to me, sitting in the church, seeing all of these people that were there, and the different groups of people that were there. They're very specific groups. He had started a youth organization along with the RCMP police detachment in the town he lived in. He was a big part of his church. He had co-workers there. There was all of these very specific groups there, and there were lots and lots of people, and they were all mourning his passing. And when I was sitting there, I was thinking, well, if this was my memorial service, there'd be far fewer people than this, and I probably wouldn't have made as much of an impact as he had. And like I said, he was a huge nerd, so I was surprised that he had impacted all of these people, because I thought he was a loner, and he played video games all the time and things like that. But as it turns out, he'd actually done quite a few things in his life, and I hadn't known about a lot of them. And so sitting there, I got looking at my own life, and that was really the time when I decided to do something intentionally, to actually give back to the world, and to find passion and excitement and a purpose in my existence. And so that was something that came out of a situation that was really not the most pleasant thing that I've ever encountered. And that can be the same with anything in your life that's negative. Same thing has happened with my parents getting divorced when I was very young. I could have made the decision to become really angry and get involved in lots of things that I couldn't have, or I shouldn't have, but instead I didn't. I grew up pretty fast, but I took that forward and have really taken responsibility for most of my life, and so there's positive that's come out of that. And going back to my family's experience with postpartum depression, that could have been, as I said in one of my previous videos, very, very damaging for my relationship with my wife Corey, for many things. And I did lose self-confidence, and I did struggle for a time because of it. But because of that situation, I've also found even greater purpose in my life. It's kept me going in the direction that Mike's passing kind of pushed me. And so really the darkness does shine for me when I think back to it. There's lots and lots of difficult things that have happened in my past, and that could have stopped me in my tracks. They could have made me cynical and angry and victimized feeling. And instead I've chosen to look at those things, and sometimes it's after the fact. I've looked at those things and tried to figure out, well, what is this trying to teach me? And looked for the lessons and looked for what I could learn out of those things. And all of that has really propelled me forward, and is part of the reason that I make these videos. I want to share my story and my experience with other people out there who are going through something similar, who don't have someone to back them up, or that they feel alone because there's nobody around them to support them. And I really want people to know they're not alone. There's lots of help out there, and lots of people going through the same thing. So that's really what I wanted to talk about today, is just looking at the darkness that you're going through and that you have gone through, and looking for those connections that lead you forward to the rewards that come from those things. And I know that it may not feel like there's rewards if you're going through something like postpartum depression right now. It may seem like this is a struggle and there's no light at the end of the tunnel. But really, if you take the attitude that there is something out there, there's something meaningful for you to take from it, then not only does it give you purpose to help you get through it, but you can actually gain quite a bit from going through life's challenges. One of my favorite speakers was the late Jim Rohn, who a lot of people called him a business philosopher. He was a writer, he was a speaker, he did lots of audio programs, things like that. But to me, he was just a great source for things that would open my mind. And one of the things that he said in one of his talks was to let life touch you, and to take from that what it was trying to teach you. And I really took that to heart. So I encourage you to do the same. Look at your current situation, even if it's really, really difficult. Look at it as an opportunity to move forward, to become what you want to become, and to actually give it some meaning so that it's easier to get through it. One of the greatest ways to get through something that's really difficult is to feel progress. And if you're looking for things to learn as you're going through it, it makes that journey a ton easier. And you never know, there might be something magical for you to learn going through this, and something that you can bring forward to the rest of the world after you have gone through it. So that's really what I wanted to talk about. If you like this video, please leave it a like. If you think there might be some value in it for someone else, share it with them. Give me your comments below. I'd love to hear what you have to say about your experience and about these videos specifically. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see what's coming up next. And the next video should be out Friday. This one's a day late. I apologize for that. The next one on Friday will be just my daily vlog, so what's on top of my head at the moment. With that, have a great day, feel well, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.